A calm decision that said, without saying, the game no longer runs on permission slips from yesterday's kings. Quick proof? Watch what followed: sold-out arenas, shattered rating ceilings, a rookie season that rewrote the itinerary for what possible looks like. Here's what you're going to get from me tonight: how a teenage slight at UConn metastasized into a business earthquake, why a few casual jabs from a Hall of Fame coach backfired in public, and the exact moment a million-dollar lifeline morphed into the cleanest revenge in modern hoops. Let's set the scene the way it really felt. The lights too bright for a high school gym, the bleachers a patchwork of winter coats and iPhone cameras, the sound of a net snapping from 28 feet like it has something to prove. Back then, the path for a generational guard was pre-written. Called Geno Auriemma, book a flight to stores, slip into a dynasty like a custom-tailored suit. UConn, blue blood, banners crowding the rafters like constellations. For a kid who dreamed in 4 letters, that was supposed to be it. Except it wasn't. The contact was light, the interest lukewarm, the calls filtered. Not once did the architect himself pick up the phone to speak to Caitlin or her family. The message, intended or not, was unmistakable. She wasn't the chosen one. The party would go on without her. Application. That tiny bit of distance changed every single thing that followed. She chose Iowa, not for pedigree but for oxygen. For the keys, from day one. For the freedom to be something UConn had never needed before, an offense unto herself. Framing. Expectations versus reality. Expectation said, pick the program, become another chapter in a long book. Reality said, write your own book, make them build a new shelf for it. The bet was risky. The payoff was ridiculous. Road gyms turned into road shows. Her warm-ups became pre-game events. Her logo threes were not heat checks, they were billboards advertising the new economy of attention. Tickets vanished. Television executives recalibrated. Suddenly, little girls did not daydream in generational blue, they daydreamed in number 22. And while the old guard kept practicing the language of control, systems, hierarchies, pipelines, Clark kept practicing the language of gravity. Come closer. Watch this. Now try to look away. Here's your first mini cliffhanger. Was the recruiting cold shoulder a one-time blip or the first domino? Hold that thought, because there's another scene we need to replay, and it looks like a talk show studio. Auriemma, smooth as ever, leans back in the chair, flashes the practice smile, offers the compliments, and tucks conditions into the pockets. Fearless kid. Plays like the driveway. Hear the warmth? Now hear the subtext. Driveway, as an informal, as an improvisational, as in not the cathedral where the banners live. The compliments always seem to come with an escort. Paige Buchers exists, UConn still produces the blueprint, nothing truly new under this particular sun. That's not random. That's narrative management from a man who's been writing the league's history for 3 decades. Context. Backhanded praise is older than basketball. It's a velvet rope, velvet tone, steel purpose. Application. Every time those caveats slipped out, fans heard the echo. Don't crown her, don't elevate her above the system, don't anoint without the UConn stamp. Framing. This is the classic power move. If the phenomenon can be filed under "we've seen it," then the phenomenon doesn't threaten the throne. Expectation versus reality again. The expectation was that couching her rise would contain it. Reality? The attempt to contain it became evidence of how big it already was. Now the mask slip moment. An interview, summer 2024. The volume turns up from subtext to text. Words like delusional, find a microphone. The insinuation that Clark's new audience didn't get it, that they were giving the sport a bad name with their predictions and their zeal, that this explosion of attention could not possibly be about her game at face value. That's not analysis. That's a flare from a lighthouse that suddenly realizes the ships are now guided by a different star. Here's your second mini cliffhanger. What happens when you insult the wind that's filling every sail in your harbor? The answer came in the language Clark speaks best, possession by possession. No hashtags. No subtweets. No, let me address the haters. Just box scores that turn into billboards. Passing angles that feel like stage magic. Threes that erase timeouts. And then the awards, the ones the same delusional crowd had forecast. Rookie of the Year. First team All-WNBA. Fourth in MVP voting. The exact slot her supposedly naive fans argued she could reach. Expectation versus reality. The expectation was that the math would correct the myth. Reality. The math was the myth, numbers so gaudy they changed the way we talk about hype because the results were already the receipts. Call back to that first domino. The one bumped in high school halls and recruiting spreadsheets. Imagine a world where the phone call happens, where the investment is real, where the program that prints legends decides to print another. Does the sport still explode around her?
Probably.
But who holds the pen on the story? A dynasty, again. The banners, again. The same riverbed, just a bigger flood. Instead, her rise bulldozed a new channel, and not everyone standing on the old banks like the current. Now the pivot, the strongest point arrives second, like a knockout disguised as a jab. With the audience swelling and the ratings surging, a new venture steps onto the stage. A made-for-now summer league, tight schedule, big promises, bigger backers. It needs a face. It needs the face. And after all the caveats, after all the very public reminders about who owns the blueprint, the offer arrives for Caitlin. 8 weeks, north of $1 million, the biggest short-form paycheck women's hoops has ever dangled. On paper, it looks like free money. In practice, it looks like a reclamation. A lifeline. A chance for yesterday's architects to stamp tomorrow's skyline with their initials. Context. This is how industries try to catch a rocket mid-flight, by branding the launch pad retroactively. Application. If Clark signs, the narrative snaps back like a rubber band. See. The star is still our star. The future still checks in with the past before it takes a step. Framing. Control. Plain and simple. Not sinister, just structural. The instinct to certify. What happened instead was the quietest scene in the whole movie. No theatrics. No victory lap. No speech about respect or history or who owes who. Just a two-letter word that travels like thunder.
No.
It's the word every gatekeeper hates because it runs on a fuel gatekeepers can't issue. Self-sufficiency. And it lands like a gavel. Not guilty of needing you. Pattern interrupt. Short, sharp, surgical. She didn't slam the door. She let it close on its own. The fallout was instant in a way only silence can be. Without Clark, the league's marketing plan had a crater where the sun was supposed to be. The hype math stopped adding up. The lifeline started to look like what it was, a bid for relevance from people allergic to admitting they needed her more than she needed them. And here comes the long arc of irony. The same coach who once couldn't be bothered to call a teenager was now indirectly attached to a pitch that hinged on that teenager rescuing an adult's business plan. The same voice that placed caveats on her brilliance was now banking on the raw wattage of that brilliance to certify the new thing as the thing that lets run another value loop on that no. Context. Clark's brand isn't just basketball, it's autonomy. She left a gold-plated pipeline, built a runway in cornfield country, and took half the industry with her. Application. Saying no to a windfall signals what saying yes would have compromised: control of schedule, body, story, and alliances. It's not anti-league. It's pro-leverage. Framing. The bigger picture is that the sport has turned inside out. For years, institutions minted stars. Now stars mint institutions. The torch wasn't passed. It was pried loose. Third mini cliffhanger. If one no can reroute a business plan, how many no's does it take to redraw a map? Before we answer, let's talk about the cost of being sure you're the main character forever. The largest egos don't balloon in a vacuum. They're inflated by decades of being right. Geno Auriemma's resume is a skyscraper. When you've lived at altitude that long, you develop customs.
Control the frame.